You are walking slowly through a cold medieval town long after sunset. The streets are narrow, wet, and almost completely silent except for the sound of distant footsteps and dripping rainwater. There are no bright lanterns lighting the roads. Only a few candles glow behind tiny windows. The smell of smoke, mud, wet straw, and animals fills the air. Tonight, we will quietly explore what a normal evening was truly like for ordinary people living in medieval Europe. Not kings, not famous warriors, just tired villagers trying to survive another difficult day. So relax, lower the lights, and let yourself drift gently into the medieval world. In medieval Europe, nighttime was very different from modern life. After sunset, most towns became extremely dark. Without electricity, even large cities disappeared into shadows. People carried candles or oil lamps, but these were expensive. Poor families tried to save every bit of wax and oil they owned. For this reason, many people simply went to sleep shortly after dark. A typical medieval evening began after long hours of labor. Farmers returned from fields exhausted. Blacksmiths finished working near hot furnaces. Women prepared simple meals over open fires, while children carried water or gathered wood. The average person worked almost every day of the week. Rest was rare. Most meals were simple and repetitive. A poor family often ate vegetable soup, dark bread, onions, or cabbage. Fresh meat was uncommon. If someone owned chickens, eggs were more valuable than the chicken itself. Salt was extremely important because it preserved food during winter. Without preservation, families could starve. Inside medieval homes, smoke constantly filled the air. Many houses had no chimney. Smoke escaped slowly through holes in the roof or cracks in walls. People's eyes burned frequently. Coughing was normal. Over time, smoke darkened ceilings as covered walls with black soot. During winter, life became even harder. Snow covered roads for weeks. Travel nearly stopped. Food supplies became dangerously low. Poor families often shared tiny rooms with animals to stay warm. A goat or pig inside the house was common. The smell was terrible, but warmth mattered more than comfort. At night, strange sounds echoed outside villages. Wolves sometimes approached farms searching for food. Dogs barked constantly. The forests surrounding towns felt mysterious and frightening. People believed many dangerous things lived in darkness. Stories about witches spread through villages for generations. Some villagers truly believed certain women could curse crops, poison animals, or summon evil spirits. Fear was powerful in medieval society. Most people never traveled far from home. A person could live their entire life within a few kilometers of one village. Roads were dangerous. Bandits attacked travelers. Diseases spread between towns. And wild animals still roamed large forests across Europe. Religion controlled much of daily life. Church bells marked important hours. Priests guided communities and explained disasters as punishment from God. Many villagers feared hell deeply. Life was difficult, uncertain, and often short. Death surrounded medieval people constantly. Children frequently died young. Illnesses spread rapidly because people understood very little about medicine. A simple infection could become fatal within days. During plague outbreaks, fear consumed entire towns. Families locked doors tightly. Some people fled into forests. Others prayed endlessly inside churches. Doctors had very limited knowledge. Many treatments were painful or useless. Some believed sickness came from bad air. Others blamed sinful behavior or evil spirits. Bloodletting was common. Doctors used knives or leeches hoping illness would leave the body. Unfortunately, patients often became weaker instead. Medieval hygiene was poor compared to modern standards. Bathing happened rarely for ordinary people. Heating water required enormous effort. Soap was expensive. And during winter, many feared cold baths could make them sick. Clothing was rough and uncomfortable. Most fabrics were made from wool. Poor people usually owned only one outfit for daily life. Clothes were repaired repeatedly because replacing them cost too much. Shoes wore out quickly on muddy roads. Children worked from very young ages. A boy might help plow fields or carry heavy tools. Girls often learned cooking, sewing, and cleaning from their mothers. Schooling was rare outside wealthy families or monasteries. Most villagers could not read. Books were incredibly expensive because every page had to be copied by hand. Still, medieval life was not always miserable. People found moments of happiness whenever they could. Festivals brought music, dancing, and laughter into villages. Traveling performers amazed crowds with songs and stories. Markets filled towns with noise. The medieval night grows colder as rain begins falling softly over the village rooftops. Inside small wooden homes, families gather closer to weak fireplaces trying to stay warm. The fire crackles quietly. Smoke rises slowly toward dark ceilings, blackened by many years of soot. Outside, muddy streets are almost empty now. Only a few late travelers move carefully through the darkness, carrying tiny lanterns. In medieval Europe, nighttime could feel endless. Without electric light, darkness completely changed the world after sunset. People feared becoming trapped outside at night. Roads disappeared into shadows. Forests became silent walls of blackness. Even familiar places looked frightening after dark. Many villagers believed dangerous spirits wandered during nighttime hours. Parents warned children not to leave home after sunset. Stories about ghosts, demons, and witches spread through nearly every village. Around fireplaces, older villagers repeated ancient tales passed down through generations. Some stories spoke about haunted forests where travelers vanished forever. Others warned about strange figures standing silently beside roads during storms. Fear became part of ordinary life. But despite these fears, life still continued every morning. Before sunrise, villagers woke once again to begin another exhausting day. Roosters crowed loudly across muddy farms. Women started fires for breakfast. Farmers prepared tools while cold fog covered the fields. Most medieval people worked from sunrise until sunset nearly every day of their lives. The work was physically brutal. Farming required enormous effort. Wooden plows cut slowly through hard soil while animals pulled heavy equipment. Hands became rough and damaged from years of labor. Back pain followed many workers throughout their entire lives. Harvest season was especially important. Entire families worked together gathering crops before winter arrived. If heavy rain ruined the harvest, hunger spread quickly. A single failed season could destroy a village's food supply. For poor families, survival depended almost entirely on weather. Bread remained one of the most important foods in medieval Europe. But not all bread was equal. Rich families enjoyed soft white bread made from fine wheat. Poor villagers usually ate darker bread made from rye or barley. Sometimes flour became mixed with dirt, straw, or even insects during difficult years. Yet people still ate it because food was too precious to waste. Cheese, onions, and cabbage appeared often in ordinary meals. Fresh fruit was rare during winter months. Sugar was extremely expensive and considered a luxury. Most villagers never tasted exotic spices from distant lands. Clean water continued causing problems in many towns. Rivers often carried waste directly through crowded areas. Animals drank from the same water sources as humans. Disease spread easily under these conditions. Still, medieval people had little understanding of bacteria or contamination. Many believed sickness came from bad smells or punishment from God. Doctors in medieval Europe often used strange treatments. Some burned herbs hoping smoke would remove illness. Others believed balancing bodily fluids could cure disease. Bloodletting remained common for centuries. Patients sometimes became weaker after treatment instead of healthier. Surgery was extremely dangerous. Without proper pain medicine or sterilization, even small operations carried deadly risks. Tooth problems were also common. Sugar was rare, but people still suffered terrible dental pain from poor hygiene and rough food. When teeth became infected, barbers sometimes removed them using metal tools. The experience was horrifying. In larger medieval towns, markets brought excitement into daily life. Merchants sold fabrics, tools, candles, bread, and animals. The smell of cooked meat mixed with mud, sweat, smoke, and horses. Crowds filled narrow streets while traders shouted loudly for customers. For villagers living isolated lives, visiting a market could feel exciting and overwhelming. Traveling musicians occasionally arrived in towns, bringing songs and entertainment. People danced during festivals despite difficult living conditions. Music offered temporary escape from hard reality. Simple instruments like drums, flutes, and lutes created sounds that echoed through village squares late into the evening. Religion remained deeply connected to every part of medieval society. Churches dominated town centers physically and spiritually. Large bells echoed across fields marking important hours of the day. Most people attended church regularly because faith shaped their understanding of life and death. Heaven represented hope. Hell represented terrifying punishment. Paintings inside churches often showed frightening scenes of suffering meant to remind people about sin. Many medieval villagers could not read, so
Morning slowly arrives over the medieval countryside. A pale gray light spreads across wet fields while the cold mist hangs above the ground. Roosters begin crowing in distant farms. Church bells ring softly through the fog. And across Europe, millions of ordinary people wake once again to continue lives filled with labor, uncertainty, and survival. Inside tiny wooden homes, villagers rise before sunrise. The fire from the previous night has almost died. Ash covers the stone hearth while the air remains cold and smoky. Women quickly begin preparing breakfast using whatever food remains available. Usually, this means dark bread, thin soup, or simple porridge. Meals are small because food must last through difficult seasons. Children rub tired eyes while pulling rough wool clothing over cold skin. Most medieval families own very little. A wooden table, a few bowls, simple blankets stuffed with straw, perhaps one candle if the family is fortunate enough to afford it. Luxury barely exists for ordinary people. Outside, the village slowly becomes alive with movement. Farmers walk toward muddy fields carrying wooden tools across their shoulders. Oxen pull heavy plows through damp soil. The work is exhausting, even before the sun fully rises. For peasants in medieval Europe, farming controls nearly every aspect of life. Every season matters. Every storm matters. And every harvest determines whether families survive winter. Spring brings hope, but also anxiety. Too much rain destroys crops. Too little rain causes fields to dry completely. Farmers constantly worry about weather because they have no way to protect themselves against nature. Many people spend entire lives fearing famine. During difficult years, villages sometimes become desperate. Families mix flour with bark or roots just to create enough bread to survive. Hunger changes people slowly. Bodies grow weaker. Children become thinner. And sickness spreads more easily among starving populations. Animals remain incredibly important in medieval life. A single cow can provide milk for an entire family. Chickens offer eggs. Horses help transport goods and pull carts. Even pigs become valuable sources of survival during winter. People often care for animals almost like family members, because losing livestock can destroy a household completely. Markets continue serving as the center of social life in larger towns. Villagers travel long distances carrying grain, vegetables, cheese, or handmade goods to trade. The roads leading into town are crowded with carts, animals, and travelers wearing muddy cloaks. The market itself feels noisy and chaotic. Merchants shout loudly. Blacksmiths hammer metal tools beside smoky fires. Children weave through crowds while stray dogs search for scraps of food. The smell of fresh bread mixes with sweat, mud, smoke, and horse manure. For many peasants, market days feel exciting because they break the endless routine of labor. Traveling storytellers and musicians occasionally appear among crowds. Some perform songs about knights and kings. Others tell frightening stories about demons, monsters, or ancient battles. People gather closely around performers because entertainment is rare and precious. At the edge of town, medieval executions sometimes take place publicly. Authorities believe punishment should be visible to everyone. Crowds gather silently while criminals face harsh consequences. Even small crimes can lead to brutal punishments. Stealing food during famine may result in whipping, imprisonment, or worse. Life in medieval Europe is often cruel by modern standards. Still, ordinary people continue living one difficult day after another. Inside monasteries, monks spend long hours praying and copying books carefully by hand. These books require months or even years to complete. Ink stains their fingers while candlelight flickers softly across stone walls. Knowledge moves slowly during medieval times. Very few people know how to read. Books are rare treasures owned mainly by churches or wealthy nobles. For ordinary villagers, stories and information spread through spoken word rather than writing. Rumors travel quickly between towns. Fear travels even faster. When disease appears in one region, panic often follows. During plague outbreaks, medieval cities become terrifying places. The streets grow strangely quiet. Doors remain closed. Church bells ring constantly for the dead. Carts carrying bodies move slowly through crowded neighborhoods. People burn herbs hoping smoke will protect them from sickness. Some wear strange masks or carry flowers beneath their noses to block bad smells believed to spread disease. Doctors know very little about infection. Many treatments fail completely. Entire families disappear within weeks during severe outbreaks. Yet life somehow continues afterward. New children are born. Markets reopen. Fields are planted again. Human. The cold, medieval rain finally stops sometime before dawn. Thin fog slowly rises from muddy roads while weak morning light appears beyond distant hills. Inside small village homes, tired families begin waking once again. A baby cries softly somewhere behind wooden walls. A rooster calls from a nearby farmyard. And another ordinary day begins in medieval Europe. For most people living during the Middle Ages, life follows the same difficult rhythm every single day. Work, survival, prayer, sleep. Then the cycle repeats again. Ordinary peasants rarely have the freedom to rest. Every member of the family must contribute something. Even young children carry responsibilities. A small boy may spend hours gathering firewood from nearby forests. A young girl may help prepare bread dough or fetch water from wells. Life teaches responsibility very early in medieval society. Many homes stand close together inside villages. The roads between them are narrow and covered with mud nearly all year long. When it rains heavily, entire streets become difficult to cross. Shoes sink deep into wet earth. Carts move slowly while horses struggle through thick mud. The smell throughout medieval towns is powerful and impossible to ignore. Animals live close to humans. Waste often fills open drains beside streets. Smoke from fireplaces hangs heavily in the air. But for medieval people, these conditions feel normal because they know nothing different. In wealthier towns, craftsmen fill busy streets with sound and activity. Blacksmiths hammer glowing metal late into the evening. Tailors repair clothing by candlelight. Bakers wake before sunrise to prepare bread for the morning market. The smell of fresh bread drifting through cold air becomes one of the few comforting parts of medieval life. Bread is so important that shortages sometimes lead to riots. Hungry crowds grow desperate quickly when food disappears. And famine visits Europe more often than many modern people realize. During harsh winters, villages become frighteningly quiet. Snow blocks roads completely. Travel nearly stops. Families remain trapped inside cold houses for weeks at a time. Food must be carefully rationed. People count every loaf of bread and every remaining sack of grain. The wealthy survive more comfortably. But poor peasants often face starvation. Sometimes entire villages lose people during especially severe winters. The medieval world also feels deeply religious. Nearly every village centers around a church. Its bells control the rhythm of daily life. People gather there not only for worship, but also for news, announcements, and community events. Most ordinary villagers cannot read books or official documents, so spoken announcements inside churches become extremely important. Religion influences how people understand everything around them: storms, disease, war, even failed harvests. Many believe disasters happen because of sin or divine punishment. Fear of hell remains very real for ordinary people. Paintings inside churches often show terrifying images of suffering souls burning forever. Children grow up hearing warnings about demons and eternal punishment. At night, candlelight creates long shadows across stone walls. The medieval imagination fills darkness with danger. Travelers sometimes arrive carrying stories from distant lands. They speak about giant castles, dangerous wars, and mysterious illnesses spreading through large cities. For villagers who rarely travel beyond nearby towns, these stories sound almost unbelievable. Yet curiosity still exists even in isolated communities. People gather around fires, listening carefully to every detail. Inside castles, noble families live differently from peasants, but even their lives remain difficult compared to modern standards. Stone castles are cold during winter. Drafts move constantly through hallways. Torches provide weak light and thick smoke. Still, nobles enjoy better food, stronger protection, and greater comfort than ordinary villagers. Knights train regularly for battle. Heavy armor protects them during war but feels exhausting to wear. Battles themselves are chaotic and brutal. Swords clash loudly while horses scream in panic. Most medieval wars are not glorious adventures. They are dirty, violent struggles that destroy farmland and villages wherever armies travel. Peasants suffer most during wartime. Soldiers often steal food and animals directly from poor families. Homes burn, fields are ruined, and disease spreads rapidly among displaced populations. Yet somehow, ordinary people continue rebuilding again and again after each disaster. Music offers one of the few escapes from hardship. During festivals, villages transform completely for short moments. Bonfires light up dark town squares. Musicians play drums, flutes, and string instruments while people dance together beneath the night sky. For a few precious, night settles once again over medieval Europe. Cold wind moves slowly between narrow streets, while weak candlelight flickers behind tiny windows. Most villagers have already returned inside their homes. Wooden doors close tightly against the freezing air. Outside, the roads become quiet except for distant footsteps, barking dogs, and the sound of rainwater dripping from rooftops. Inside small cottages, families gather around weak fires before sleep. The warmth barely reaches the corners of the room. Smoke hangs heavily in the air because many homes still lack proper chimneys. Children sit quietly beside parents while supper cooks slowly above the fire. Meals remain simple. Dark bread, thin soup, sometimes onions or cabbage. For lucky families, a small piece of cheese or salted meat. Nothing is wasted in medieval life. Every crumb matters. A failed harvest or harsh winter can mean starvation. This constant uncertainty shapes the medieval mind deeply. People learn never to feel completely safe. Even during peaceful years, danger always feels nearby. One storm can destroy crops. One illness can wipe out an entire household. One cold winter can change everything. And because life feels fragile, religion becomes incredibly important. Before sleeping, many medieval families pray together. Candles glow softly beside wooden crosses hanging on walls. Parents ask God for protection from sickness, fire, and hunger. Children listen quietly while wind whistles outside the house. The Church teaches people that suffering on earth may lead to peace after death. For ordinary peasants, this belief provides comfort during difficult times. In larger towns, night watchmen slowly patrol the streets carrying lanterns and wooden staffs. Their job is to guard against thieves, fires, and violence. Fire remains one of the greatest fears in medieval cities. Most buildings are made from wood. Roofs are covered with dry straw. One small spark can destroy an entire neighborhood within hours. For this reason, many towns enforce strict nighttime rules about candles and open flames. Still, fires happen often. When flames appear, church bells ring loudly through the darkness. Villagers rush outside carrying buckets of water, while smoke rises into the night sky. Sometimes, entire families lose everything before sunrise. Far beyond the villages, medieval forests stretch across huge parts of Europe. Dense trees cover hills and valleys where few people travel safely alone. Wolves hunt quietly beneath moonlight. Bandits hide beside isolated roads waiting for travelers. And ancient superstitions make forests feel even more frightening. People tell stories about spirits living among the trees. Some believe witches gather deep inside forests during storms. Others speak of strange creatures wandering at night, searching for lost travelers. Whether true or not, these stories shape the fears of medieval society. For most villagers, darkness itself feels dangerous. Inside monasteries, however, nights remain peaceful and silent. Monks wake before dawn for prayer. Candles burn quietly inside cold stone buildings, while soft voices echo through empty halls. Some monks spend long hours copying books by hand using ink and feathers. Every page requires patience and concentration. Books are so valuable that many ordinary people never touch one during their entire lives. Knowledge moves slowly through the medieval world. News travels mostly by word of mouth. A traveler arriving from another kingdom may bring stories that spread through villages for months. Rumors about war, plague, or famine move quickly between towns. Fear often grows larger each time a story is repeated. During plague years, fear becomes almost unbearable. The Black Death changes medieval Europe forever. When disease enters a city, panic spreads immediately. Shops close. Churches fill with frightened people praying for survival. Doctors wear strange masks stuffed with herbs, believing strong smells protect them from sickness. Carts carrying bodies move silently through empty streets. Many families lock themselves indoors, hoping death will pass by their homes. But medieval medicine knows almost nothing about bacteria or infection. People search desperately for explanations. Some blame bad air. Others blame foreigners, sinners, or evil spirits. In truth, most people simply feel helpless. And yet, despite all the suffering, life somehow continues. Children are born, markets reopen, farmers return to fields once disease fades away. Human beings adapt even after terrible tragedy. In many ways, medieval life depends entirely on endurance, especially for women. A medieval woman works constantly from sunrise until late evening. She bakes bread by hand, carries heavy buckets of water, repairs clothing beside candlelight, feeds animals, raises children. And during harvest season, she also works in fields alongside men,